Okay, so I talked about how I think doctors are really full of themselves. I think this is different in other places, but in America, doctors make so much money, and there's a way that like I feel like it's almost like a point of pride. You know how programmers, it's like a point of pride to be like, oh, like I use like this methodology is so stupid, or like if you use spaces instead of tabs, you're so stupid. Like there's a way that like the condescension is almost part of how you prove that you're good at it, which is like, it sucks because like you don't need to be condescending to be good at stuff. Like there's a way that I think doctors have a kind of a cold way that they talk to each other about patients that they don't need to have, but like it's almost like a mark of pride. Like, yeah, I'm a serious enough doctor that this is how I talk about people. And I think it's gross. I think it's really gross. Yeah. I don't like the culture of doctors. And I think very often, especially in the US, doctors just kind of will just like decide things for you. Doctors will just make a decision about why you're sick. And sometimes that hurts people a lot. And like, I have very real anger about this. Like my sister would never have been so sick if this hadn't happened. And my grandpa would not have died if this hadn't happened. Like my grandma was like begging them and they just wouldn't, because they were just like, you're being hysterical at her. And then like he died, you know? And like, I do feel a little bit angry at the way that doctors treat people. But like nowhere in the video was I like, don't listen to doctors. Like they're still your best option. They're just like kind of the worst guys. Like your best option is the worst guys, you know? And partially it's because like in the US, if you want to go to med school, you have to pay so much money. So it's kind of gatekept to people who are of a different class. And it's sort of a way for them to stay in a different class because then they get a ton of money forever. There is also like a class thing happening. I don't know, man. I don't like doctors. Like, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to the doctor. I'm just saying that like, if someone tells me they're a doctor, I'm like, oh, good. I hate you. You're a piece of garbage person. But like, you should still go to the doctor if you're sick. There's not a better option. And like, I trust the medical institution. I think people doing medical research are great, and I think they're really good at it, and I think the things that they find out are important. Do I think that doctors always read those papers? No, I don't. But that's okay. The institution of medicine is super important. As doctors, as individuals, I assume they're just like worse people. But then also, some people were like, hey, I'm a doctor and this hurt my feelings. And immediately I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is a terrible generalization. Like, you help people for a living. I'm a stupid anime girl. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, the sass is very reversible. It's very much like, yeah, frick you, French Canadians. But if someone was like, I'm a French Canadian, I'd be like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was out of line.
It's like, frick those specific people that we've interacted with, or like people we know have interacted with that have sucked. I mean, I have so many thoughts about this because I, for a long time, wanted to go to med school. And like, I don't know if I've talked about this on stream, maybe once before, but like when I was like little, like this is also a problem in Canada as well. For sure, it's not only the US, even though we have like, you know, it's still, doctors still suck, even if we have like free healthcare. And free healthcare, it's like you'll wait forever, but at least it's like you don't have to pay like an arm and a limb to get some stuff done. Anyway, but when I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10, my mom almost died. She's okay, she's alive, she's healthy.
Oh my god.
And she's all good. But like basically she had internal bleeding, and her blood pressure was incredibly low, and the doctor that was there was like, oh, that must be because she's Asian. I'm sure that's normal. There is no research that shows that your blood pressure is different depending on race. Everyone's blood pressure is the same. It's the ranges are the same. And so luckily there was like a nurse that was there who wasn't like Chinese like us, but also like was Asian. And then they were like, dude, what are you talking about, bro? That is not how that works. We should check. That's bad. And then like, if it wasn't for that doctor, my mom probably wouldn't have, but like she would have bled out. I think she lost like 70% of her blood or something.
Oh my god.
Before they stopped it, because it was really hard to pinpoint how that was happening. And so like that was a really big thing that when I wanted to be a doctor, I was like, you know, it kind of goes, there's a lot of misogyny, there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of like everything bad happening.
Dude, didn't medical textbooks still say that like black people didn't feel as much pain until like I want to say it was like the 80s. Weren't there really still like recently medical textbooks in use that said that in like the freaking 80s? I swear.
Yeah. there's like very few things, right, where it could be tracked to like ethnicity because of certain gene pools. And then like with sickle cell, for example, I think like if you are a Black patient, you are more likely to get tested for sickle cell just because the chances are higher, right? Like epidemiology. But a lot of other ones are just like bullshit. A lot of other ones are just like full on like history was really racist and they never fixed them. And then they're just teaching more and more new doctors that this is how it works.
Like doctors don't really get re-educated, right? Like there are systems in place to like try and ensure it, but it doesn't really happen. Like they get educated once. Yeah. And a lot of doctors are super old because no one can afford to go to med school, which means that like there was a study done like recently, like I think in like 2020 that said that like a lot of American doctors still believe the thing about like, well, you know, you don't need to numb your Black patients because they just don't feel as much pain.
Yeah, that's insane. And it's like, there's just like, I mean, like, sexism, misogyny is also huge, right? Like, the fact that, like, if you get an IUD or something, which is something really painful.
Oh, dude, they tell you it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories that, like, they're like, oh, it's no biggie. And then
dude,
it's,
I drove
like, the
my
worst
friend
pain
home.
ever.
Because she wasn't supposed to need to be driven home, right? They don't do anything for it. They don't numb you at all. But like, she was like throwing up from the pain. Like, it is crazy.
Yeah. And so like learning about all that kind of stuff, you know, when I was like over time wanting to go to med school, I was really like, there was a part of me that was really hopeful that, you know, the best way to change this is to try to be the person that like that nurse was for my mom, right? That was like my main, I mean, like, of course, like everybody else who wants to go into med school, hopefully everybody else, you know, wanted to help people, wanted to like learn. I love science. I really liked it. And so I wanted to like use my studying capabilities and my memory and like all of this kind of stuff that could help people and actually, you know, be like that nurse for my mom. And then that's what I thought I wanted to do. Later on, I was like, the reason why I didn't want to be a doctor anymore was mostly because I didn't think I could handle it, like emotionally, physically. And I think that like people deserve doctors who can make sure that they are safe and taken care of. And so I was like, I don't think I would be a very good doctor. But I have a lot of beef with how the medical school application process is as well.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like, the fact that you have to take the test to apply to be a doctor, that test itself is like hundreds of dollars, like $200, $300 or something. And like the study materials are also like hundreds of dollars. If you want tutoring, that's even more on top. It's like so insane. Also, like the test itself, I think it's like 12 hours long. So if you're like full-time working, how would you be able to? It's just so incredibly, the barrier to get into like med school is so freaking high. And all the people I know who like got into med school or like all these things, people that they know or their parents are doctors and they have the money to like pay for this kind of education that they need to study.
Dude, if you're in the US, if you go to NYU, like it's $68,000 a year, $68,600 a year, and you need 4 years of it. It's like $250,000 that you have to just like have on hand, and 4 years of lost income on top of college, which is already like 200,000-ish. If you're in America, any doctor you meet is from a very, like, they have so much money. Like, they had so much money to do this in the first place, and then once they do it, you know?
There's definitely like scholarships and stuff, right? But that's such a small portion of like med students like that like actually had very little and successfully got a scholarship, and they had to do so much more to get that scholarship because they had to apply for a bunch of stuff. They had to like, it's just incredibly difficult to get to becoming a doctor, right? And then when you are a doctor, you are worked to the bone for like most of the beginning of your career.
Yes.
And like, and you just become, I feel like a lot of doctors, even those who are really, really excited to become doctors, I feel like they just get like disillusioned and hardened because the like, there's always like, oh, you have to be, attendings are like incredibly insane with their residents and like making them work crazy hours and like also like verbally abusing them, and then you just become disillusioned.
Like
and then
hazing.
When it's your turn to be like an attending, you're like, okay, well now I get to do that, and it's like a system of abuse, and it just continues on, and patients are like just not listened to at all. Everyone's so busy all the time. There's not enough doctors because there's not enough funding for more residency spots. It's just all bad and so that's also why I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. This system seems really busted and I'm going to be really and it's just whole so then I go to the doctor, and then my family doctor, is so overworked because in Canada there's a big shortage, especially of family doctors. Mm-hmm. And I go there and I'm like, I think I'm really, really like emotionally fragile because I had like really bad anxiety, like panic attacks. And I also had like an ankle problem. And I said, these are the things I'm struggling with. And then she's like, you gotta pick one. You have to pick one thing. And apparently I had like a lab mate who also went to their doctor asking for like, you know, like a physical and mental checkup, right? And then they were like, also like, she is originally from the Dominican Republic. And then so she comes in, right? And then they're like, oh, how long have you been in this country? You should know that it's one thing per appointment. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's not a rule. That's not a rule here. It's not like a rule that you can only do one thing.
There's not one. That's not how bodies work. More than one thing can be wrong with them at the same time.
Yeah, and like appointments are so incredibly difficult to get. And family doctors, like in Canada, you have to wait at least minimum a year to get a family doctor. Most people wait like multiple years. It's just insane. And I think the healthcare system everywhere, at least like, I don't know, it's so busted, dude. At least in North America, I know that for sure.
Insurance is definitely a piece of it in America too, where like doctors have to be constantly denying care to people. And I think like if you're a doctor and so much of your job is just saying like, no, I can't do that, like your insurance won't cover that, or like, I don't think that you can honestly like feel good about healing someone if you're also saddling them with like 100,000 in debt. Someone asked, why don't more Americans come to the EU? I'm trying.
One American here trying.
Yeah, a lot of the Americans I know are trying. It is super expensive though. It's really hard. It's hard because, okay, for a few things. One, money. The US is a really hard place to not have a job because you get health insurance through your job.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not employed, you can't get, for example, doctor's notes. You can't get your medical records. You can't get, without spending a ton of money, all kinds of things that you need to move, which means that you have to be moving while you are theoretically in this position where, like, if you get a job abroad, they're not going to give you American health insurance, right? Because you're going to be working there. So if you have your visa set up already, you can't be moving, right? It's a lot, man. It's a lot. For school or jobs. For school, there are a lot of good reasons to go abroad. Although, in fairness, schools around the world will have like a foreign fee, which I think is good. I think that they should. I think it's only right that people should subsidize the school for the country, right? Like, I have no problem paying more to go to a British school, for instance, but it does mean that it's not that much cheaper than going to school in the US if you're going to a worse school, right? So, like, you could go to a very prestigious school abroad for about the same price as a very like low-tier school in the US. So most people are just, if they don't have that money, they're just going to go to a low-tier school in the US, or they're not going to go to school, right? Americans, a lot of them want to. A lot of people just want to stay though because they love this country. And like, whatever you believe, you know, it's hard not to feel something about the place where you're from and the place where you live. And I really love a lot of things about America, and I would miss them a lot. I suspect that, like, if this all works out, I'm gonna miss them a lot. But, like, at the same time, I really, really want, yeah, there are a lot of things that you're kind of lied to about a little. Like, I know that I've been talking about this too much lately, but it's been so on my mind because, like, the American healthcare system is a nightmare, and, like, my family will never be okay financially because my sister was sick when she was a kid, right? And that was everything. Like, if you want to keep your kid alive, especially since, like, at the time that started, insurance companies could deny coverage to someone who is already sick. So if, for example, you have cancer and you're a kid, you can't get insurance coverage. So you have to pay all of those hospital bills, and you just have to decide, like, what is your kid worth to you? Your house? Is your kid worth everything you'll ever make? Is your kid worth debt that you'll be in for the rest of your life? And as a kid, right, like my understanding, because we're told this in school, is like it wouldn't work any other way. Like in you wouldn't believe, if you go abroad, they're all just dying in the streets. Like if they get sick, they can't get a doctor to see them. There's no such thing as an emergency room, is something that I was told. There's no emergency room in Europe. And so like finding out that like there is actually a better system, and like so much of the pain and suffering that I have seen my family go through my whole life, the fact that I have worked like crazy from the second that I could get a job, I have never had fewer than 2 jobs. Like the entire time I've been able to work, I have had around 3 jobs. And I have just kind of been working around the clock always. Like this, I love streaming. I love it so much. And I love it because of what it is, but I also love it because it's like, it's a job, but it's also kind of restful and fun. So it's something that I can justify spending time on without feeling bad for not earning money. And like that just, there aren't a lot of things like that, because I have been trying for so long to try and like help my family, because they'll be in debt forever because they cared about their daughter. And so like having found out that it's like a lie, that it is completely possible to have a system where like if your kid gets cancer, that's not the rest of your life that you're going to be in horrible debt. I want to leave. I don't think I've said that directly on stream before. That is a big part of why I want to leave. I feel so lied to, knowing that so much of this could have been prevented, and like so much of the kind of dark ways that I've treated myself in my life were just completely just for profit. They were just for someone's profit. It wasn't like an unfortunate necessity. It was just for someone to make money.